Oh, wow. Where are you?
Switzerland.
Very nice. So it's also a little late here. It's 8:15, but not as late as where you are.
No.
Well, Emily, it's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, Michael, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. Emily is a Switzerland-based lifestyle coach, trained chef, and urban gardening mentor who helps business professionals harvest real food from tiny spaces and turn it into fast, nourishing meals. Before her first chemotherapy, she researched nutrient-dense foods and built a 4x2 foot rooftop garden, a 5-minute daily ritual that carried her through treatment and sparked her small space, big harvest method. She's also the founder of Pen and Puzzle, a publishing brand creating joyful wellness adjacent books. First and foremost, Emily, I want to talk about your chemotherapy. So, explain to me how, first of all, explain to me how, like, why you needed chemotherapy and how this helped.
Well, I needed chemotherapy because I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And as I come from a chefing family, I was like, okay, if I want to go through this treatment, which was pretty harsh, with a lot of sessions, I was like, okay, I have to do something with my food because that's what keeps you going. And I didn't want to go to supplements. That's just a personal thing.
Mm,
And I also needed as much nutrient dense food as possible to keep myself going. So I did some research, and the shocking thing I discovered is even if you go to a farmer's market, if some of the leafy green vegetables that we all know are the most healthy ones, they lose up to 95% of the nutritional value within 24 hours. So I was like, I need
that's very
those
interesting.
nutrients.
Where did you hear that?
Well, that's, I mean, I researched it on several platforms,
Interesting.
and it was a shock, I have to admit, because it was like, that doesn't really bring me then as much as I hoped. And then my mom was like, well, then there is only one solution. You have to grow them yourself. And I was like, yeah, mom, of course. I have a rooftop terrace. I don't have a garden. And I'm going to start my 17 months chemotherapy. I'm not going to go to the other end of town for an allotment garden. And she said, well, do your research. So I did. And in the end, I came up with, as you said, my 4 by 2 foot little garden, raised table height. So no crawling, no bending, no back aches and knee pains. And that's where I, back then, started growing those vegetables, spinach and lettuce in the middle of winter, and kale and carrots and onions. And yeah,
That's incredible. Is that like worth your time?
it's absolutely worth your time.
I'm just wondering how much
Especially
care goes
because it's
into it.
not as time consuming as most people think. You
Yeah.
can
Tell
maintain
me
it
about
in,
that.
well, you can maintain it in 5 minutes a day, 5 to 10 minutes
Mm,
a day. And that's it, honestly. And that includes kind of like harvesting whatever is ready to eat.
mm.
And most of my time in the garden now is I have a little bit more than that one garden now, but it's still about 8 minutes. And then the other 8 minutes I spend being outside and having my glass of wine at the end of a workday.
That sounds amazing, honestly. So and well, how did all that go?
Sorry?
How did all that go with the so you started the harvesting and, the chemo journey. Tell me a little bit more.
Yes. Well, during the chemo, what was actually, well, first of all, I mean, the food was kind of like the initiator to start it, to build it up, and to have it. But whatever you grow in a garden is a lot more than whatever you put in your body. I always say it's kind of like the best doctor on body, mind, and soul level. And for me, of course, yes, I had my fresh vegetables even in the middle of winter, and I kept my blood values perfectly to have my treatments. Didn't skip a single one or reschedule a single one. But it also got me out of bed. No, my husband would say like, yeah, yeah, don't you have to check on your new seedlings? And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I have to. So even the days that I was like, I don't feel like I just want to crawl under the duvet and not see and hear anything. Yes, that garden, that the feeling that like, oh, but I am taking care of that. I am responsible for it. I have to go and look and check. Was what got me outside. Which is another thing because you're in the fresh air, you're in the sun. So again, you have that little step that just improves the quality of your life and health. Uh,
Amazing. So talk to me about even a few steps back. So you used to be a chef, right? I mean, you are a chef. You started off
yes.
as a chef before all of this. How does how does this journey change your perspective as a chef?
Um, well, it's kind of like I grew up as a chef. I'm the sixth generation of female chefs in the family.
Right.
So I was in the kitchen of my mom as of, I don't know, 3 years old or something like that. I could just stand. Um, and where although I grew up with prepping food and having things fresh and do it yourself, you go through school and university and you all fall in the fast food trap and
Right.
whatever ultra processed food from the supermarket, and it's cheap and it's okay, and it's
And
kind of
it's
like okay.
normalized and
Mhm.
seen as healthy.
Yeah.
That's the whole trap where it's not like
Mhm.
you know you're doing something wrong, like eating sugar or candies and chocolates. In fact, you think you're doing something right.
Yeah,
And
I mean, if you want
you're
to
like, I'm eating
believe,
healthy.
if you
Yeah.
believe the labeling, yes, you should. Yeah, you do think that. And it's probably okay when you're like 20, 21, 22, and healthy and fit and you still go to the gym or something like that. Um, but of course, in the long run, it's not. Uh, we kind of like all know that. But if you then confront it with a life threatening situation or whatever health scare, you're kind of like, maybe I should think a little bit more about what I put in my mouth and with that in my body. So I of course had kind of like the luck for me was it was for me very easy to go back to all the fresh ingredients and start prepping and cooking myself again because that's what I grew up with. That's what I grew up doing, also professionally for many years. Um, it's just the awareness on how much healthier it is. Just
Interesting.
thinking what I said, how quickly fresh vegetables lose their nutritional value. You're kind of like, oh, I'm all of a sudden you're kind of like adding 80% of the nutritional value that you were missing out on.
Did you feel a difference once you made that change?
Um, that I find difficult to say because of I was so poisoned with the chemo. Um,
Right.
what I did feel and what I did know do know is that the doctors were like, "How on earth are you able to follow the schedule we made for you? Because we kind of like always make that schedule and nobody can stick to it." And I could because my blood values were good. Some of the minerals were even better afterwards during chemo than they were before. So in that sense, it does. But the whole chemo makes you feel so crappy. I don't that direct relationship in how I felt during that time was not there. So it's hindsight that I know that my blood values were so good and that I stuck to a schedule the oncologist thought was impossible. Um, the health scare made that I never went back to the processed food eating. So yeah, I now
It's a
feel
nice silver
feel
lining.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. So for someone who's as busy as yourself with zero time and a small balcony, can you walk me through this 4-pot starter system and the 50-minute weekly reset that keeps
Yes.
it going?
Well, the 4 pods is literally what it says. It's 4 pots from roughly 12 liters. So what's that for the Americans? 3-ish gallons, I think. Um, and then about 20 centimeters deep. So that's about 6, 7 inches. So you fill that with a good soil mixture, organic, of course. We work organic. We don't want don't want to invest all the time to then still have crappy produce. So you don't
Right.
want to poison yourself after you did all the work. Uh, and with 4 pods, I always say you plant or you sow one with leafy greens. So that can be a lettuce, that can be some rainbow chard, that can be kale, anything like that. Um, there you would definitely, with the lettuce and the chard, you would kind of like sow relatively dense, and then you thin it out to that you can kind of like see the single seedlings. And for the harvesting, you just keep picking the outer leaves, and that you can keep on doing for months if it's over winter, and weeks if it's very hot outside. Um, the other one, I would always say do something root. So the second pot is the root pots. So you have radishes, you have carrots, you can do beetroot, you can do spring onions. There you kind of like sow in circles of around 5 centimeters. So it's like that.
Hmm.
So how many circles you can make in your pot? It's probably about 12. That's what you sow. A third pot, I would go for herbs, and you can do a mixture in a pot that big. You can do a mixture of parsley, thyme, chives, oregano, sage, whatever you like. Mint, yes, but I would keep that in one pot because mint is quite a I want my space plant. It's it grows big and a little bit invasive almost.
Right.
So it's a bit weedy. It's like it grows like a weed, and you will never get rid of it again. And then the fourth pot, that for me would be kind of like the fun, whatever I feel like pot. So in summer, it would definitely be a tomato, a little bush
How
tomato
long does it take to grow them from like start to finish?
for tomatoes.
Yeah.
Well, normally you would buy a seedling. I mean, if you do it from, yes, you can do it from seeds, but that is kind of like complicated to start with. So you'd buy
Right.
a little plant in your local garden center. Then you also know that it's the time that you can plant it actually outside, because they can't really handle frosty nights. And then from there, you have normally after 10 to 12 weeks, you can start picking your first tomatoes. And that goes on then for another 6 to 8 weeks. So it's
Oh, great.
like a longer period of time. Um, in spring, that that pot, that kind of like joker pot, can be very well used for beans. You can also use it in winter for maybe a cabbage or some kale that you let grow a little bit bigger and in a mixed pot. So yeah, so that's kind of like a little bit more seasonal. In summer, of course, you can also do bell pepper in that pot, for instance. So yeah, that's a little bit more kind of like the mix and match the season pot. Um, and then if you kind of like want to use your garden as a little reset routine, I am, come wind down. I go outside, so you feel the sun, you feel the air, you little wind or whatever, you smell whatever is there. And then you do like a little breathing exercise. So you inhale for 4 counts, you hold for 2, and then you exhale for 6. And
Is
that
this your mindfulness
yeah.
like 555 micro ritual? Okay, great,
Yes,
great, great.
yes. And then you kind of like repeat that once more. And then you have kind of like the five things that you can see, 3 things that you can hear, something soft and nearby, something a little bit louder and a bit farther away, and something really loud that comes from really far away. What you can see, of course, I mean, in the garden, that's flower or maybe a bumblebee or the sun or the leaves of your vegetables. Um, so it's see, it's here, then it's what you can feel. You can feel the sun on your skin or the wind through your hair. Um, and then, of course, what you can smell. And hopefully in a garden, that is something really nice. Something fresh, something fragrant. Then you kind of like repeat the breathing exercise from the beginning. And then you take a few steps, preferably barefoot. And you kind of like imagine that the roots go from your foot into the soil. And you kind of like exhale. That's so that's kind of like the little routine.
That's actually beautiful. And yeah, I've learned to appreciate mindfulness and meditation in one form or another over time. So, Emily, how could people get in touch with you?
They can check out Easy Urban Gardening. .club is my website. There you also find a blog with a lot of articles and recipes, of course.
Mhm.
I'm also Easy Urban Gardening on Facebook, and I'm That Tiny Garden on Instagram.
Honestly, beautiful. I, I'm not, I haven't kind of head down the path of gardening too much, but this all sounds super fascinating. And I probably should start growing some stuff in my balcony behind me.
Yeah.
It might not be a bad idea.
And as I said, with the 4 pots, you don't need huge space. You don't
Right.
even need a garden, and then you don't need big space. You can do it with the 4 pots. You can also make a little raised bed from 2 by 2 feet, or as I have 4 by 2, depending on the space you have.
It's beautiful. Well, Emily, thank you for your time and wisdom. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Very, very nice of you to have me.